he brought me to the east gate, and behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the east. And his voice was like the noise of many waters, and the earth did shine with his glory. And the glory of Yahweh came into the temple through the east gate. And the glory of Yahweh did fill the house. And I heard him speaking to me out of the house. And he said to me, Son of man, the place of my throne, the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel, forever in the place of my holy name. Now show them the temple to the house of Israel. Show them the design of the temple and measure the pattern. Show them the form and the seat of the house and the fashion and the comings and goings. This is the Torah of the house upon the top of the mountain. The whole limit thereof round about shall be holy. Behold, this is the law of the house. So we're continuing our series on Show Them the House, Show Them the Pattern, Show Them Design. In this video, we're going to talk about the East Gate. As you can see in the intro, it is Yahweh that will pass through the East Gate and go into the temple. Now, there's a lot of information in this video. We're going to talk about the East Gate. And I'm going to warn you right now, those that have difficulty understanding the calendar are going to have difficulty understanding this video. I mean, you're more than welcome to watch it, but this video is for those that do understand the calendar, do understand time and its importance. The Millennial Temple shows us time, okay? Now, you can understand this, okay? That's why we're doing these presentations. We're sharing this information. But let's go and let's talk about what we talked about in the previous video. What did we talk about? The veil, the blue, the purple, the scarlet. Those are the veils, okay? Those are the doors, the entrance. Just like you see the East Gate in the intro of the video, it's like a temple. It's very large. It's a large building. And the East Gate also was in Moses' tabernacle, which we can see here. Here is the East Gate in Moses' tabernacle. Okay, then you have the courtyard area, you have the altar, you have the brazen laver. But keep in mind, the tabernacle was always positioned towards the east. Okay, so you have the outer East Gate, you have the entire tabernacle positioned towards the east, and then you have the outside veil with the 5 pillars positioned towards the east, which you see here, and these are the colors we've shown you, blue, purple, and crimson. Then you go inside, and there's another space called the Holy of Holies, and there's a veil outside the Holy of Holies with the same colors. So as we talked about before, we had the colors blue, purple, scarlet. That was entrance to each gate into the Holy of Holies. Now, another feature about the Ezekiel Millennial Temple is you can see that there was a veil at the Holy of Holies. But what's interesting is that in the Ezekiel temple, there's no veil and there's no door. So that it's open. Okay? And that's what Christ said to the church of Philadelphia. He said, behold, I've placed before you an open door. Okay, so the door is open into the Holy of Holies. Very important for us to understand. That's part of the message of showing the goings, the movements, the activities as it relates to the temple. Okay, Ezekiel 43, show them the form, the design of the house, the fashion, the throne therein, and the goings therein, and the activity. Now, you could see in the intro of the video that the artist rendition had the glory coming in. Now, what the order is that comes in what? Through the east gate. Then what happens is that east gate is closed. Okay? So he comes in, he passes through the east gate, okay? And then what it says is the east gate is closed because Yahweh pass through the east gate. And the only one that can go through the east gate, this is the east gate on the outside that we're talking about here, guys. The only one that can go into the east gate there is the prince. Okay? So that's an important distinction. Why? Because Jesus Christos, Alpha and Omega, is Yahweh. It is his presence. He is the one that is talking there in Ezekiel 43. Okay? And then the rest of the book. Okay, so it's he that passes through that outer east gate, and then that east gate is closed. Then there's another east gate, which is inside. It's the inner court. Okay? And we'll show you this graphically, but within the artist's rendition of the 3D animation that you saw, he shows the door and the entrance to the Holy of Holies as being open. So, just as we saw the east gate and we saw the doors and veils of the tabernacle, now we'll look at the doors of the temple. Now, in the Hebrew, the word door is dalet, and so this is the door, the dalet of the entrance into the temple. So it's being open to us. We're going inside into a space called the holy place. It's 20 cubits wide. It's 40 cubits long. We're not told much here, just the palm trees and the cherubim, and then beyond it is the Holy of Holies. And there you can see it's open. Now the word dalet is not used in Ezekiel chapter 41 verse 3. The word, it doesn't mean a door is being measured. It's a doorway. It's a space. It's an opening. So there's no veil. There's no door. Now the artist does show a door there because it's assumed. But and that's the translation. You have to look at the right translation. The word dalet is not there. So there's no door. Okay? But this is the promise that Christ made to the church at Philadelphia. Behold, I've placed before you a open door. Glory to his name. Now, back outside the temple complex, you can see it's an area that is positioned towards the east. Okay, so this is the east gate on the outside. And then there's an east gate on the outside of an area called the inner court, which is here. And that's the altar. And then you have this gate, which is south. And then this gate, which is south, positioned to the south. And then you have gates positioned to the north. Okay, the north gate. So this is east, and what you can see is that this is a sundial. Okay, so in this rendering, you can see that the artist has the sun in, this position, casting a shadow on the east gate, which is casting it's sunlight on the east gate, which is casting a shadow inside the courtyard area. Now the sun is in a more northerly position, which should actually around this time of year, which would be summer. Okay? So if you see, this is projecting a shadow. Now there are also buildings. See these buildings here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's 30 of those. There's 30 of those buildings that go around. Now, these particular buildings are marking the time, okay, because when you have a full spring equinox, this shadow, see how it's going like this? It would be in perfect alignment with this gate, this east gate. So that shadow would be perfectly straight this way. So the shadow would go directly straight, just like this, on the spring equinox and the fall equinox. Okay? And then what it would do is it would move this way to the summer, and then this way towards the winter. Okay, so now we're east, we're looking this way, so if this is the equinox, the shadow is going to be perfectly straight, just like this. But then, before we were looking at it, and it was positioning the shadow off the east gate this way, which is the farthest point would be the summer solstice. Then it comes back to the fall for the fall equinox, perfectly straight, and then it goes to the winter, positioned this way. So in this artist, he has positioned the shadow towards the winter. Okay? Now he doesn't have the buildings here. Okay? In his design, he just did a clean design. But what happens is that the shadow projects an alignment with these buildings. Okay, see that? See how the shadow comes and see how it aligns with these buildings? So either if you're here looking out, you will see the sun move on the horizon east or west. Okay, these in the Enoch calendar are called portals. Okay, but what's happening is that each one of these is a portal. These buildings are. Okay, see how there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. These are portals that Enoch talks about. Now, let's explain what's going on here. Okay, here is our inner court. In our inner court, the center is the altar. And then you have gates. This is the inner court south gate. This is the inner court east gate, inner court north gate. Now, if you're here and you are looking out, this is the outer east gate. Okay. Now, many of you may not be aware of this, but simply put, the sun rises and sets at different places on the horizon. So, for example, I'm going to use my crude battery charger to act like our east gate. Okay, so if our east gate is here, you can see that the sun is casting a shadow. See my finger? This is the shadow, okay, that's being cast. Here, let's get more of that on the screen so you can see it. Okay, so it's casting that shadow. So the sun is coming from this direction, casting the shadow. Now the equinox is a point where that shadow is like this. See how it lines up perfectly? So the equinox happens on March 20th, 21st approximately, and the sun will hit the east gate and it would line up right with the inner east gate. See that? Okay, so this would be the outer one. It would cast that shadow. Then, from the spring, it goes into summer. When we go into the summer, it's going to look like this. So the sun is over here, where my hand is. It's hitting the east gate, and then it's casting a shadow over here. Okay, see how the shadow is moving in this direction? This is south. Okay, so it would keep doing that and casting that shadow in this direction. So then the sun would return in the fall to the fall equinox, where it would line up again, okay, and line up again to the east, where it would be perfectly aligned in the east with the inner east gate. Then the sun will go into the winter. In the winter, okay, the sun would thus begin casting a shadow off the east gate in this direction, in the north. Okay? Now, this is amazing, guys. I do this so that you understand. I'm going to try and explain it as simple as I can, but what I'm showing you is the structure of time built into the architecture of the temple. Okay? And to prove it's the Enoch calendar, it's not the moon. Okay? We showed you before that there are buildings, see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 here. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So those buildings we showed in the different rendition. Okay, we had shown you those. So 30 is the number of days in a month. 30 days in a month. Okay? That's in the Enoch calendar. Then the Enoch calendar has 4 solar days. So we showed you the solar days, okay, off of the east gate, and they mark certain points, which we'll get to, okay? So then there's 4 solar days. There's spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, and winter solstice, okay? Those are expressed by these buildings here in the 4 corners, because those are called the 4 corners of the year, or you know, and so you add those 4. So you have 30 days, 30 in a month, and then you have 4 additional days. All right, and then of course there's degrees in a perfect circle. There's 360 degrees. All right, now those degrees are coded into the architecture, into the structure. So let's look at how those are coded. We're here at the south gate, and in the south gate you see how it says 7 steps. So there are 7 steps. If you're outside and you enter, you walk up 7 steps to enter the south gate. Now if you continue from the south gate, you are now in the courtyard area, and then you go to the south gate of the inner court. You walk up 8 steps. You walk up 8 steps, you go into the south gate, and then you enter the inner court. So there are 7 steps here, and it actually doesn't say, but the east gate, all right, we're assuming, okay, 7 steps, and then the north gate here, 7 steps. Then you come into the inner court, you have 8 steps, 8 steps, 8 steps. Now, in Hebrew, the word, when it's translated in English, it says steps. It's the same word for degrees. Okay, so just like we have 360 degrees, or if the sun is moving on a shadow, like it talked about the shadow, the miracle with King Hezekiah, it said those steps were degrees. So in Hebrew, the same word for step is the same word for degrees, or shadows on a sundial. Okay? Now, what's happening is the steps are giving us instruction on these positions of the sun. Okay, now let's look at that at an animation. Okay, here's a cool app and animation, and you can see we have this set for March 20th. I don't know if you can really see that well there, in Jerusalem. And the sun is rising from the east, and they have in the center a sundial, and it's the equinox. Okay? So here you can see the sun is right here. It's rising right there. It's hitting the pole on the sundial here and casting. Now then what happens is it moves towards the summer. The sun on the horizon here will move slowly each day till this position. Okay, then in this position the sun will be here, and this is the summer solstice. Then it comes back here, and it will be here for the fall, and then it moves to this point over here, that blue, for the winter solstice. Okay? So in this animation, you can see the positioning in the points of where that is on the horizon. So now let's go and look at the summer solstice. Okay, so now we're at June 21st, summer solstice, and the sun is over here. Okay, so you see how the sun has moved on the horizon from this point to here. Okay, Enoch calls these different points portals. Okay, so now when the sun is projecting off our sundial here, you can see that it is moved in this direction, is moved to the south. So the sun is moved on the horizon to the north, okay? But then the shadow it's casting on our sundial here is moving towards the south, all right? And so then it does the same thing for the winter solstice. Now here we are at the December 21st, 2020, the winter solstice, and now you can see that the sun has moved to the south on the horizon and casting the shadow towards the north. Now, if we allow the animation to run throughout the course of the day, so this is the sun rising, and then as you can see, the shadow moving through the course of the day, you can see how it moves on the sundial. Okay? So you can see the amount of shadow it's casting. So what this means is that you can see right here that the southern or the south gate also acts as a sundial. Okay, this is part of the measuring of time, because at high noon the sun will be perfectly over the south gate and it would be casting a shadow, and that would be perfectly aligned with the north gate. Now I want you to pay attention, and I want you to notice how much this shadow is. Okay? See how much that shadow, see how far it is? It's almost right to the end. Now if we look at the summer solstice, now we have the sun rising here, and if we run the animation as it rises, okay, throughout the day, you can see just barely. Can you see this? Pay close attention to the movement there. There's only a little bit of shadow being cast off that pole. Can you see it? See, there it is. Okay. But it would be just enough for that southern gate, or to have at least some shadow to give us an indication of where high noon is. Okay. And there's the rest of the day. Okay, so rising, and there you can see high noon, and then the rest of the day. Now let's look at the equinox. So now we're at March 20th, and you can see the sun rising, casting the shadow over the east towards the west, and then if we look throughout the course of the day, okay, then we get high noon, and this is our like midpoint. Okay, so remember how close it was in the summer, how far it was in the winter, but each day that southern gate, okay, would cast a shadow, and there would be an alignment that we would see with the inner court southern gate casting a shadow inside the area where the altar is. Okay, so can you see how this is a sundial, guys? Okay, so when the sun is rising in the east, okay, here it is, rising in the east, it's the equinox. Okay, it's coming up, it's lining up there perfectly. Now, I want you to remember this, because this particular equinox is very important to start the year, okay? Because what it says is, it says there's a east gate that's on the outside, remember? And then there's an east gate that's on the inside. Now the outside one is closed because Yahweh went through it, but the inside one is open, and it's open at certain times, which we'll look at shortly. But I want you to see this animation and how this is simulating what the sun is doing at certain times of the year as it relates to the temple being a sundial. Isn't that amazing? Now back to our diagram. Now remember how we saw that there are steps, and steps are degrees? Okay, so we saw before that the sun would move to the farthest point to the north in the summer solstice, okay? And it would move farthest to the south in the winter solstice, right? Well, the information we have on the steps actually tells us each position of each month. So remember how there are 30 days in a month. So in one month you got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 30 days of these buildings here. Remember how we saw those buildings? Well, each one of those months can be expressed by one of these buildings. It's called a portal. So for example, the summer solstice is a day, okay? But that month in the summer where that would appear it would be this building. You see how this is a building here, and there's a 7 on it. What that means is that's the 7th portal. And then the next building, the sun is moving, and the next building, if you're looking here and you're looking out, the sun is here, and then it travels 30 days, and then it's going to be projected on this building. And then another 30 days, and then you come to this building. And then you come here in the east gate, and you see there's a 4. What this means is this is the month with the equinox in the fall. This is the 7th month. So in the first month, in the 7th month, the east gate is perfectly aligning the equinox with this alignment here. Okay, its shadow would be perfectly east to west. And then it keeps moving. So these buildings, guys, are markers of the equinox. Now there's also a courtyard area here that he drew. So you could either look at it one of two ways. If you're here and you're looking out, you're inside here, you would look out at the sun and you could see it moving on the horizon throughout the course of the year. Or you could watch the east gate, and the east gate will have a shadow that will move throughout the course of the year. So our marker could be either these buildings or here. Now let's remember, as the sun moves through the course of the day, it would also give us high noon. So the highest point during the day would be our south gate, and our south gate would cast a shadow in alignment throughout the course of high noon. So we would never be off with our time in the year, because this is how we have to understand when all the feasts are and everything else. So what this means is, actually the book of Enoch says that there are 6 portals, and you can see that there are 6 buildings. But the distance between each of these in that animation, when we looked at it, it was 8 degrees. So you see how there's 8 steps here? And there's 7 steps here? Well, each one of these steps is reflected by 8 degrees. Okay, so as the sun is moving, each building, if you're looking here and you just draw a perfect point, this is 8 degrees. And then 8 degrees, 8 degrees, 8 degrees, 8 degrees, 8 degrees, 7 times. And so it would perfectly mark each month of 30 days and the movement of the sun in its shadow on the east gate and then on the south gate as well. Now there isn't a gate over here in the west, but it's really predominantly when the sun is rising when we get our marker for what the portal is. Okay, so you can see them here. There's 4 solar days. Remember how we have 4 solars? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 solar days, and those are called Tekufa. And the year starts in the spring equinox, and that's number 4. So that's number 4 here. Then it goes to the summer, and that's portal number 7 here. Then it goes back to the fall equinox, portal number 4. Then it goes to the winter, portal number 1. So you can see within the structure, it does have the instructions as a sundial so that we would never be off with the feasts. The East Gate also gives us instruction on how to do the leap cycle with the Enoch calendar. So here we're at the East Gate, we're going inside. The animation is showing us that there are sections here, okay? So notice these sections that the animation is drawing out. And as he goes through, you see how it says 5 cubits? Okay, so that's one space and section of the post, and then there's another one section which is 1 reed. Okay, a reed is 6 cubits. Okay, so the animation is showing some other measurements, but what it's telling us here is that inside the east gate, or actually all the gates, there's spaces. Okay, here you can see in the animation it's pointing them out. One space is 5 cubits. One space is 6 cubits. So what this means is this is our leap cycle. So every 5 years, you add a week in the Enoch calendar. Then you go 6 years and you add a week. That way, your calendar is never off by more than a week for your feast. So the East Gate gives us these instructions. The Millennial Temple also tells us instructions on how to start the year. We can find them here in Ezekiel 46. And the gate, the inner court that looks towards the east. Remember, we saw how the inner court gate in the east, how it will be open, or it would reflect the equinox, right? And here it's talking about the 6 working days. So it shall be shut 6 working days, but on the Shabbat it shall be open. And in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. Now, what is the day of the new moon? Well, some of you may say, well, Leland, that means it's a lunar calendar in the millennium. Well, what we have to do is we actually have to look at that word. If we look at that word in the Hebrew for new moon, and we can see it here, we'll bring it up. You can see it's Kodesh, Strong's 2320. And it's translated month. Okay, you see it's used 276 times, month 254 times. It's only used as new moon 20 times. So what this means is in the month, the month is the beginning of the month or the first day of the month when you blow the trumpet. Okay? So likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of the gate before the Lord in the Shabbat in the month. Okay? So the month means that they're blowing the trumpet on the first day of the month. And you can see what it says is the inner court, the gate will be open also on Shabbat. So it's open on 2 days. One day is the first day of the month. The other day is the Shabbat. Now this proves how we're on the correct time. Now, I told you before that we saw how there's an alternating 5 years and 6 years of the calendar. So what this means is on the first day of the first month, you blow the trumpet. So the east gate, inner court east gate, is open on that day. And that's the same day as the spring equinox. Okay, so the same day of the spring equinox is the first day of the first month. Okay, and then you also open the east gate on the Shabbat. Okay, the Shabbat is here. It's the 4th day, 11th day, etc. Now, it's also telling us in Psalm 81 something extraordinary. I don't have a lot of time to do this, guys. I'm going to put it in notes because I don't want this video to be too long. Let me just grab the verse. So Psalm 81 tells us about this, okay? Blow the trumpet in the new month, not moon, not new month, the first day of the first month, in the time appointed. Now this word time appointed in the Hebrew is actually a full moon. Okay, so it's a full moon. So you're blowing the trumpet on the first day of the first month, or the first day of the month, and it's a time appointed. It's a full moon in our solemn feast day. So it's a solemn feast day. It's the first day of the first month. That's exactly what we have shown you in the calendar. So our first year of the calendar was 2019. So in the year 2019, the equinox was on a full moon, March 20th, on the first day of the first month. So that instruction is actually in the Millennial Temple. So this proves that the equinox and full moon are the same day. That's your year 1. Then you count either 5 years or 6 years till this alignment takes place again. So this is all stuff that is coded into the Millennial Temple, giving us instructions on time. So we be correct. So what have we learned? We have learned that there are portals and markers in the Ezekiel Temple that are seen by the position of the sun aligning with the buildings on the eastern side next to the east gate. Okay, we learned that the first day of the first year, the inner court eastern gate is opened. It's open on the first day of the first month. Why? Because it's aligning with the spring equinox perfectly. All right, we've learned that to get high noon, we thus have the south gate aligning perfectly with the south gate in the inner court, casting these shadows. So that is all the time coded in. Actually, it's not all of it. Let me mention this too. All right, this space, this area here, is 500 cubits. Then it says there's an additional space outside the temple complex area. That space between here and here, this green line marking it, is 50 cubits. Now the other way we can prove the Enoch calendar is in the temple is that this space here, the distance of 50 cubits is 1,260 inches. Let me say that again. The distance of this boundary here is 1,260 inches. We know 1,260 is the number perfectly described in Revelation about 1,260 days, right? So these days are coded in this space here. Now, if we were to take this space and the 500 cubits and then the space on the other side, and we were to multiply that, we would come to 1,260 feet. So again, 1,260 is coded in the boundary, and it's coded in the whole distance of the temple complex, including the boundary, giving us perfectly the time. So guys, it's a lot of information. I really encourage you to go back over this a few times because it's proving that the calendar we have submitted to you is exact, it's precise. We're right on the feast. We're right on the start of the year. Okay, our year one was last year, and everything is being confirmed and approved by the temple itself. Okay, so in the millennium, it will be this calendar. You can see that calendar coded throughout the structure. So guys, thanks for watching. This is part of our playlist on a few playlists. Okay, we got the Enoch calendar playlist. It's certainly part of that. It's show them the pattern. Show them the pattern of the East Gate. Okay, that's the series of messages we've been going through to show you the time. We've been showing you Christ, His throne. Okay, all of that. So thanks for watching, and God bless you.